You ever wonder what happens when a family that's supposed to love you spends your entire life treating you like a spare part? When your own sister tries to hijack your wedding and make it hers? Well, my parents demanded that before I walked down the aisle, my sister would do it first. In a wedding dress. They thought they could humiliate me. But what they didn't know is that my husband and I had already planned their downfall. If you've ever been underestimated or had someone try to steal your spotlight, you're going to love the story. Stick around until the end, because trust me, the revenge is worth every second. And hey, while you're here, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another tale of justice served cold. I was born into a family where favoritism wasn't subtle, it was brutal. My sister was the golden child. I was the afterthought. I don't mean the usual, oh, parents have a favorite stuff. I mean, if she accused me of anything, I was punished. If I accused her, even with proof, I was called a liar. On my birthdays, the cake had to be her favorite flavor. My toys, shared with her. Her toys, untouchable. By the time I was a teenager, I wasn't a sibling. I was her punching bag. And when my sister lost her friends at school, suddenly, I wasn't just a nuisance, I was her #1 enemy. I had friends. She didn't, so she made sure I couldn't see them either. She'd whisper poison to my parents. Her friends are bad influences. Or, why does she always want to leave home? Doesn't she love us like I do? And my parents bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. I'll never forget the day my cousins invited me to a birthday party. I told them I couldn't go because, well, I'm not allowed to have friends since my sister doesn't. Word spread to the adults. My parents got chewed out by family. And their solution? Ground me for a month for lying. That's when I learned 2 truths. My sister would always find a way to drag me down. My parents would always help her do it. The cruelty didn't stop at childhood. When I got my first boyfriend, she tried to seduce him, pathetically, in skimpy clothes, batting her eyelashes like a cartoon villain. When he rejected her, she flipped the script, told my parents he had come on to her. Guess who they believed? Not me. Boyfriend after boyfriend. Same story. She tried. They refused. She lied. My parents called me untrustworthy. Eventually, I stopped bringing anyone home. Meanwhile, she had every freedom, later curfews, more money, fewer rules. Whenever I questioned it, my parents said she's older. But when I reached her age, nothing changed. The rules were always just for me. By the time college came around, my parents made it crystal clear. They'd pay for hers. For me, nothing. They told me, better if you just start working. We'll see about school when your sister graduates. Which, of course, never happened. She dropped out, moved back home. And still, she was their princess. I was left to fend for myself. But you know what? That was the crack of light I needed. I worked my ass off and earned a full scholarship. Posted about it on social media before my parents could stop me. Forced their hand. For once, I won. And in college, I met him. The man who would change everything. My husband. But little did I know, meeting him would set the stage for the biggest revenge my family never saw coming. College was my freedom. For the first time in my life, I was living away from my family's suffocating control. And that's when I met him. My husband. He wasn't flashy. He didn't try to impress me with money or looks. Instead, he listened. Really listened. When I spoke about my family, about the constant favoritism and betrayal, he didn't brush it off like others had. He looked me in the eyes and said, "That's abuse. You deserve better." I didn't realize how badly I needed to hear that until tears started spilling down my face in the middle of a crowded cafe. He became my safe place. The first person who ever truly made me feel like I wasn't crazy. Like I wasn't the villain in my own family story. Of course, I dreaded introducing him to my parents. But I thought, maybe they'll see how good he is for me. Maybe they'll finally want to be on my side. I should have known better. When we showed up for dinner, my mom gave him that tight-lipped smile, the one she used on door-to-door salesmen. My dad barely looked up from his plate. And my sister? She was practically salivating. She leaned forward, batting her lashes. "So, you're dating my little sister? She's lucky. Most guys don't go for quiet types. You should have met me in college. I was the fun one." I squeezed his hand under the table, warning him to ignore her. But she didn't stop. She accidentally brushed her leg against his, dropped her fork, so she could bend over in that ridiculous low-cut top, even asked if he wanted to see pictures from her cheerleading days. He politely shut her down every time, which only made her angrier. That night, as we drove away, I braced myself. "So, what do you think?" he said. "Honestly, your parents are cold, and your sister, she's dangerous." Dangerous. He nailed it in one word. The months rolled on. My husband proposed. It was perfect, quiet, private, just us two. No big spectacle. He knew I hated attention unless it was genuine. But the moment I told my family, my sister's eyes went wide, and I knew she'd make it about her. And oh, she did. "Wait, you're engaged." To him. Oh my God, this is happening so fast. Don't you think you should wait? I mean, you've never been good at relationships. My parents nodded along. My mom even said, "Maybe he's settling." She's always been more responsible, more outgoing, and she gestured to my sister. That was their subtle way of planting an idea. Maybe my fiancé would be better off with her. From that moment, the sabotage began. My sister started showing up at his workplace with coffee for him. She texted him about wedding ideas, saying she could help since I was clueless. She even hinted that he might realize he picked the wrong sister. I found out because my husband showed me every single message. "Your sister," he said one night, "is trying to steal our wedding." And she wasn't just trying. She was succeeding, in my parents' eyes. They started pushing us to include her in everything. Cake tastings, dress shopping, venue tours. "She's family," they said. "She deserves to feel included." But what they really meant was, she deserves to be the center of attention. It all came to a breaking point at the rehearsal dinner. I was standing with my bridesmaids when my mom marched over and said, "Your sister wants to wear a white dress tomorrow." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. She wasn't laughing. "She feels left out. You need to let her have her moment, too. We've decided she'll walk down the aisle before you in white. Think of it as a symbol of sisterhood." I stared at her, stunned. My bridesmaids froze. "You want my sister to walk down the aisle before me? At my wedding? In a wedding dress?" My dad chimed in. "She deserves it. You've always had more than her." That's when I realized this wasn't just my sister being jealous. This was my entire family trying to erase me from my own wedding. I felt sick, betrayed, humiliated before my friends and future in-laws. But then, as I locked eyes with my husband across the room, he gave me a small, knowing smile. Because he and we already had a plan. They thought they could steal my wedding day. But what they didn't know is that we were setting a trap. I didn't cry that night. I thought I would. After all, my parents had basically told me my wedding wasn't mine. But instead, something inside me snapped. It was like years of swallowing their insults, years of watching my sister steal my spotlight, years of being the lesser daughter. All of it hardened into one razor-sharp thought. They will not take this from me. That night, lying next to my husband, staring at the ceiling fan slowly spinning, I whispered, "They're going to ruin everything." He turned on his side, pulled me close, and said, "Then let's not let them." And that was the moment everything changed. We spent the next week, quietly, methodically plotting. Step 1 was simple: control the guest list. My parents assumed they had the final say, since they were hosting most of the relatives. But my husband and I had already shifted the venue contract into our names months earlier. That meant, without them realizing, we had the legal right to decide who was invited. Step 2, exposure. My sister's little innocent messages. We screenshot every single one. Her texts about how she'd look better in white, about how she'd accidentally brush against my husband, about how one day he'd realize she was the better sister. We compiled them into a neat little folder. Step 3, misdirection. We let my parents and sister believe they were winning. We smiled when they insisted she try on dresses. We nodded when they demanded she be in every photo. We even pretended to agree when my mom suggested she walk before me at the ceremony. On the outside, I looked broken, too timid to fight back. On the inside, I was sharpening the knife. The night before the wedding, my sister cornered me. She smirked, swirling a glass of wine, and said, "Don't be mad tomorrow when people say I look better in white. It's just natural." For the first time in my life, I didn't shrink. I looked her dead in the eye and said, Enjoy it while it lasts." She laughed, thinking I was bluffing. But my husband squeezed my hand under the table, and I knew, tomorrow, she'd regret every second. The wedding day came. I expected nerves, butterflies, cold feet, but all I felt was anticipation. The venue buzzed with chatter, cameras flashing, relatives mingling. My mom was running around, micromanaging, barking orders like it was her show. My dad strutted like he was walking me down the aisle to some arranged deal. And my sister, oh, my sister, she strutted in wearing the most garish, glittering white gown you've ever seen. Layers of lace, a plunging neckline, rhinestones that sparkled like a disco ball. She looked less like a bridesmaid and more like she'd raided a bargain bin bridal shop. People gasped. Whispers spread like wildfire. Is she in white? At her sister's wedding. She basked in it, like every eye on her was exactly what she deserved. But she didn't know. Every single one of those whispers was being captured. Because my husband had hired a discreet videographer, someone my parents didn't know about, whose sole job was to record everything. And then came the ceremony. The music swelled. Guests rose to their feet. My father reached for my arm, ready to escort me, but I stepped back. "No," I said loudly enough for the room to hear. "I'll walk myself." A murmur rippled through the crowd. My dad's face flushed red. My mother hissed my name like a curse. And that's when my sister, smug as ever, stepped forward to walk down the aisle first, just like they'd planned. She actually winked at me. She thought this was her coronation. But the second her heel clicked on the aisle runner, the doors slammed shut behind her. 2 ushers, my husband's groomsmen, stood guard. She was locked out of the main hall. Confused laughter broke out. She spun around, banging on the doors, her muffled voice shrieking, "Open up. I'm supposed to go first." The guests chuckled, shaking their heads. And then the music restarted. The doors opened again, this time for me. I walked in, radiant, calm, in my actual wedding gown, every step echoing with the power of finally taking my life back. And that was just the opening act. Because the real revenge was waiting at the reception. She thought being locked out was humiliating enough, but she hadn't seen the screen. The ceremony was beautiful, peaceful, pure. It was everything I had dreamed of, and for the first time in years, I felt like the universe was finally on my side. But my revenge wasn't complete. The reception, that was where the truth would come crashing down. Dinner was served. Toasts were made. Laughter filled the hall. My sister, after being let back in with a face redder than her wine, sulked at the corner table. Her glittering white gown didn't look so dazzling anymore. It looked desperate. She tried to smile through it, tossing her hair, clinking glasses with anyone who would look her way. But the whispers never stopped. People were already judging her, already slotting her into that shameful category, the jealous sister in white. And then the lights dimmed. A hush swept over the room. The DJ tapped the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we hit the dance floor, the bride and groom have prepared something special." The giant screen flickered to life. At first, it looked like a standard wedding montage. Childhood photos, sweet music, my husband and me smiling at each other. My mom nodded approvingly. My dad raised his glass. My sister rolled her eyes. But then, the photo stopped. The screen filled with text messages. Her text messages. "Don't you think I'd look better in white? She doesn't deserve him. I'd make him happier. One day he'll realize he picked the wrong sister." Gasps erupted. People craned their necks, whispering, covering their mouths. And then came the screenshots of her plan, telling me she was going to accidentally trip me at the reception, telling her friend she wanted to steal the spotlight. Every word, every toxic thought she'd ever put into writing, projected in bold, unforgiving clarity. I turned my head, slowly, deliberately, and looked at her. She was pale, frozen, a deer in headlights. Her wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. "Why, no, that's fake. She edited those," she screamed, her voice cracking. But the crowd wasn't buying it. My aunt gasped, clutching her pearls. My cousins shook their heads. The room was heavy with disgust, with judgment. My husband stood, took my hand, and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is the woman who tried to ruin our wedding. This is the woman who thought she could steal a marriage. Not today. Not ever." Applause. Actual applause. The DJ switched the screen back to our wedding montage. The music swelled again, and the room moved on except for her. She bolted from the hall, mascara streaking down her face, the rhinestones of her cheap white gown catching the exit lights as she ran. As for my parents, oh, they tried to save face. My mother whispered excuses about stress and misunderstandings. My father muttered something about family loyalty. But nobody cared. They weren't the hosts anymore. They weren't in control. Their little golden child had burned her own reputation in front of every relative who mattered. For once in my life, I wasn't the embarrassment. She was. Later that night, after the music died down and the last guest left, I sat with my husband under the fairy lights of the empty hall. I thought I'd feel guilty, I admitted. Do you? He asked. I smiled. A real, deep smile that came from my chest. Not even a little. Because the truth is, revenge isn't just about hurting someone back. It's about taking back the power they stole from you. And in that moment, I wasn't just the bride. I was the victor. My sister hasn't spoken to me since. My parents still try to guilt me, saying I humiliated the family. But you know what? Families who protect abusers aren't families worth protecting. I chose myself, my happiness, my marriage. And for once, I slept like a baby. If you've ever had someone try to sabotage your happiness, you know exactly how satisfying this was. Justice doesn't always come easy, but when it does, it's worth every second. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal and revenge, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done if your own sister tried to steal your wedding? Because sometimes, revenge isn't just sweet, it's necessary.